when I start hearing that, then I'll be saying I'm getting some really good buying signals right now. And if we came down to that zone, then I would happily be looking to buy down in that zone. Then I'd be getting my shovels out and scooping up as much as I can, sort of thing. I'll predict that I'll eat my hat if it goes to 100,000. There you go.
Hey everyone, it's Alessio. Hope you're well, and welcome to this brand new video update on Bitcoin and crypto. So in this video, guys, we're going to discuss essentially the Bitcoin chart with my good friend Charlie Burton here, as you can see, all mic'd up with headsets like me as well. And we're going to look at the charts, and we're going to ask a very important question from Charlie. Is Bitcoin ultimately heading towards 100K this year or towards 20K? Or put another way, is Bitcoin going to make potentially new highs, all-time highs this year, or the opposite? Could it make lower lows towards the 25K, 22K levels there? Which one is more likely in his view? Join us. All right, guys, welcome back. So, Charlie, before we start, how are you doing? Obviously, you're in your office right now. How you been? You're obviously a lot fitter than I am. No doubt about that. You work out. How often do you work out, man?
Well, it's funny actually. Over the last couple of years during COVID, my training slipped away because there was so much going on. Certainly in 2020, and because obviously we couldn't get into gyms or whatever. That's no major excuse. There's lots of other things you can do. But what I have done of late, I've had a personal trainer for several years now, but I used to only train with him 1 day a week because I don't overly need a personal trainer because I've done so much over the years. But it's amazing the little things that bad habits that creep in to your training. It's a bit like with traders, really. They sometimes they form bad habits unless you're mentoring them or they have some form of mentoring.
No, that's great. I'll be honest. I'll be perfectly honest with everyone here. I haven't been to the gym since the pandemic whole thing started, which is my own fault. I've been lazy, and that explains why these buttons look like they're going to pop off here on my shirt. But I would love to look quite jacked up, I guess you could say, like yourself.
Too much of the good life for you, Alessio. I think that's it.
Also, I would like to ask you before we go on to the charts. Do you actually, at the moment, do you hold Bitcoin?
No, I bought Bitcoin last year. Was it last year? I'm forgetting now when I bought it. And but no, I'm currently flat. I don't own any right now. But
you're looking to get back in at some
point? Yes, depending on what it does. But yes,
depending on what it does.
Because I don't tend to trade Bitcoin. I only buy it to hold it for longer. So True. I'm not bothered about trying to trade in and out of it in the shorter term. So it's just when the next, what I believe, investment opportunity comes that I'll get involved again.
Okay, fair point. So I'll tell you what, guys, why don't we dig into Charlie's charts? And this video is going to be all about what Charlie's going to show to us. So the key question, Charlie, as I was explaining at the beginning, is if you could explain for us, in your view, what do you think is the higher probability expectation you have for Bitcoin? As far as this year is concerned, by the end of this year, do you see this year Bitcoin heading towards 100K or the opposite, lower, 20K? Or if not that, do you think Bitcoin this could make new all-time highs this year? Forget exactly when the high was. I think it was 69K. I might be wrong with that. The all-time high, could it make all-time high this year, or actually could it be going much lower towards the 25K, 24K, 22K levels there? Which one do you think is more likely? Let's dig into your charts.
Okay, I'm just keeping it simple here. And I was mentioning this with your members earlier on, that I think it's always important, as you've already just asked me, to declare whether I have an active interest in a particular market or not. For me, it is anyway, because I'm an active trader, but there are some markets that I'm trading all of the time, and there are other markets that I'll only trade or invest into some of the time. And so I can give analysis, but there's a difference between giving analysis on a market and having skin in the game in that market. It's very, very different, because when you're actually invested in something, then you've got all of the emotional side, the sentiment side to that market as well. I don't have that. I'm very neutral at the moment with regards to Bitcoin because I'm not actually invested. If I was invested, I would probably have obviously a more biased view. So in a way,
Yeah.
I can be completely unbiased here because I don't have any biases.
Very good point you make there. It has a huge impact on your psychology, does it not? Whether
Yeah.
you're in the market or you're out of the market.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. Yeah.
So we can see we've got a bit of a channel on here at the moment. So Bitcoin is holding in this channel at the moment. So the easy scenario, coming back to your question at the moment, is if Bitcoin closes below the lower channel line, then of course I think then the challenge, a re-challenge of these lows down here from June of 21 would be on the cards around that 30,000 area. And I think the reality is that if we come down to 30,000, we would want to get ourselves back into the 20,000s again. So to an extent, it depends on whether we do technically break down here or not. We don't know yet. Now, from a sentiment perspective, when I look at Bitcoin, I still have friends who are asking me, should I buy Bitcoin? And these are lay people. They're not investors, they're not traders, they're just normal Joes and Joesses and whatever else, who are just still thinking that they should I get involved in Bitcoin or all these other cryptocurrencies? And that's absolutely fine. But for me, that it still suggests that there's a lot of the general public out there who are not active investors or traders who are still looking at getting involved or are dipping their toe in the water. And I would still like to see those general masses flushed out a little bit more first. So coming back to your first question, what would I rather see this year? Personally, I would rather see, I don't have a bias towards Bitcoin. I would rather see it come lower rather than go to 100,000. Because I would rather see that market flush out those people, so that when those friends of mine are saying, oh, not interested in cryptocurrencies, Charlie, what a load of rubbish. That's what I want to hear. Because when I start hearing that, I'm in. And so
interesting.
But I'm not hearing.
No, I agree.
When it comes to sentiment, so when I start hearing that, then I'll be saying, yeah, I'm getting some really good buying signals right now because no one wants to invest, or sort of thing. The layman doesn't want to. So
just to simplify that down, what you're saying is, and correct me if I'm wrong, so you're saying that if Bitcoin manages to, let's say, break support, and I think you mentioned 30K, for example, break that lower trend line on your chart. Let's say it breaks that trend line, lower supporting trend line, and break below 30K. You're saying that could create a scenario, a situation where everybody just panics. The majority of people potentially become very fearful, they panic, and it could create a situation where they could just get flush them out. Potentially, you'd be expecting Bitcoin to drop below 30K. Where to potentially, do you think?
I'm not really in the business of giving too many predictions on price and stuff like that, but sure. Let's have a quick look at the monthlies.
And I should just be clear, Charlie, you're saying if that support gets broken, you're not saying it's going to break. You're saying
exactly.
you'd prefer that. You'd prefer that if it happens.
From a sentiment perspective, I think it would do a nice job of flushing out a lot of the general public. But and I'm not talking about active investors because they know what they're doing. They're going to carry on trading and investing anyway. So that's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But we've got these old highs from 2018, which, fun enough, comes in at around about 20,000. And so technically, if we were to come down and breach 30, the next technical level on my chart would be this high here. So price is broken out through that high back in 2021 or end of 2020, and we haven't come back down to retest. We know that technically markets like to break out and they like to retest levels. So we'll have to see. But yeah, if we broke 30,000, then I definitely could see 20,000 as being, or the area of around 20,000, maybe it goes to 21 or 22, but down in that zone for a retest of those old heights. So yeah, technically that would be what I'd see. And if we came down to that zone, then I would happily be looking to buy down in that zone.
Yeah, Charlie, on this monthly chart, what's happened is, it's something I actually mentioned in a previous video as well, regarding the monthly charts of Bitcoin, because there's a level that you and I both look at. I look at the 21 monthly EMA. Do you have that at 21 monthly, or is that a 20 SMA? you have on the blue
No,
line? Is it the 20?
I use SMAs for me. I mean, I think again, it's just in technical analysis. There's a lot
Right.
of, it's a personal choice.
It is, yeah.
Sometimes, I mean, I've used EMAs over the years, and I've switched to, sometimes I've used EMAs on the shorter term time frames and SMAs on the longer moving averages. But I think it's much of a muchness.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, because sometimes price might stall out right at an EMA, and another time it will overshoot the EMA to go to the SMA. So I think it sort of swings and roundabouts, really. I just stay with there are reasons why I use SMAs, but again, it comes down to personal style and what I do. So I don't really care if people are using
No, that's
EMAs.
fine. It's fine, yeah.
It's fine by me.
Now, what's interesting though is that I mentioned in my previous video on Bitcoin that Bitcoin has actually, since the highs we made last year, we've kind of dropped slowly towards that kind of like a magnet. I think you mentioned this before in the past, how moving averages act like magnets that bring them back to themselves. And we've had this pullback to 21 monthly EMA. We've even managed to see a nice bounce from that 21 EMA as well, monthly average, forming a bit of a solid candle on that. We can see we've nicely pulled back. I compared this to like an airplane coming in for a nice soft landing on that average, on the moving average, and we formed a little green solid bar for February. I mentioned in the previous video I was looking for a green solid bar, which, well, more or less we had that in February, as we can see there. We did temporarily break that 21 monthly EMA in February, but it was a false break. So I think we temporarily fell below it, but it was quickly recovered. So it was a false break of that moving average and support level at 37K or 36K. I think it temporarily broke it and I went back above it. So I would say that support low at the February lows, and again, the monthly EMA is going to be very important for Bitcoin, especially as you were saying, if it breaks that and it follows through below 30K, then yeah, if it does that, and we're not saying it's going to happen, but if it does that, a break below the February lows and that low on that green bar, if it breaks the February low bar, and we see follow through below that 30K level, then potentially, yeah, we may drop towards the lower levels, potentially towards the likely 28 to 25K potentially. What level did you say potentially we could move into?
Well, I was looking at around about 20,000. I'd need to zoom back out. Oops, gone wrong way now. I'd need to take this zoom back out, which brings us back to these, I think it's, yeah, these highs here of 2017, around about 20,000 or
right.
So nothing's ever exact in technical analysis. It's an area, so 20, 21, that sort of area, maybe even 19, but somewhere around this high, this zone over here, I would certainly be if we were to come down, then that would be a level that technically is a good level for a price to challenge and potentially reverse off. Yeah,
that's an interesting point. I mean, personally, I see your point. I think if Bitcoin did fall below the monthly February lows, personally, I think that, I mean, it's possible it might test 28 to 25K. For me, I'm not sure if I could see it coming to 20K, but I mean, it's possible. It's possible. I agree. I agree with you. It's totally possible.
Like I said, I don't like giving predictions because
predictions
don't make money. And people don't understand that. Well, you need to know what price it's going to go. No, you just you have some analysis, and if it's a piece of analysis you're going to trade, then you trade it, and you have risk management, stop losses, and you have targets. And
True.
A certain percentage of the time you'll be right, and a certain percentage of the time you'll be wrong. And yet people get so fixated with trying to be right in what they do. And I think it's nice to be able to have a bit of fun, and this is fun for me. So, like I've said, if it was to come down to 20,000, then I'd be getting my shovels out and scooping up as much as I can, sort of thing. But otherwise, I'm fairly neutral on it. And I'm sure we'll talk about the bullish case here as well, because of course there has to be a bullish case as well.
Tell me about the bullish case. So what would need to happen on that chart for you to become bullish, and let's say for you to get back into Bitcoin? So what would have to happen on that chart for you?
On the weekly chart, we can see that price has got below the weekly 50 and the weekly 20 on my chart, weekly 20, 21, they're going to be, so price for me would have to be back up above those. So somewhere up here in this zone. So around 50,000 basically. So that would get my interest. Yes.
That would get your interest, and you'd then be looking at potentially new highs, all-time highs?
Yeah, I think a re-challenge of the channel here, which would see us at new highs. Yeah. The doorway is then left open. So if we get back above that sort of 50,000 area, then certainly there's two things that would happen. Yes, technically, we've got some technical levels there getting above moving averages. But if we go back to like market sentiment, then more people would be getting involved again. All right, there's still plenty of people, like I've already said, getting involved, but they would be getting even more interested and buying more. And then it becomes, as we know, it can be quite a catalyst, can't it, when people start coming in?
Yeah.
So the reality is that yes, we get above 50,000. You know what would happen? It would be talked about in the news and in the media and stuff. So then naturally more people hear about it. So yeah, I could see the potential if we could get back above those levels.
Do you see 100K this year potentially, or do you think that's less likely for 100K this year? Maybe potentially next year. And I know you said you don't do predictions, but
I'll predict that I'll eat my hat if it goes to 100,000. There you go.
So you would eat your hat if it goes to 100K this year, you mean, or at any time in the next 2 years?
This year.
Oh, this year.
So yeah, no, I don't want to antagonize anyone, but yeah, no, I think it's less. I think it's less likely. Paul Tudor Jones, the world famous investor, said just 6 weeks or 8 weeks or so ago that the assets, and he is one of the world's best trader investors, 40-year track record now, and he said the assets that performed best during the COVID pandemic are probably going to face some headwinds over the next year, 18 months or so. And some of the assets that performed really well were cryptocurrencies, as we know. And so I'm with him on that. And so I think for the time being, for me personally, I think, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I wouldn't be buying during this next year or so, because the best times to buy, as we know, if you're buying for the long term, is when markets are on a dip, if you believe in that market. So, but do I think in this next year, by the end of 2020, that we go to 100,000? For me, I think it's less likely, but of course I can be wrong. Anyone can be wrong, and it's a view. And so
I think you meant 2022.
I think the lower probability for me.
I think you meant 2022. Obviously.
Oh, sorry. What did I say?
2020.
What did I say? I'm always living in the past.
Thanks so much, Charlie. Really appreciate it. So, guys, just to let you know, Charlie's coming up with some great new stuff. Again, he's going to be doing some interesting stuff on his side, trading-wise. So we're talking about potentially in a trading room and indeed even an artificial intelligence and things like that. So I'm going to tell you more about that in the next several weeks. And Charlie's going to offer you some fantastic deals. And I'll tell you more about that in the next few weeks.
The one thing, I went full-time trading in 2001. So I've been full-time trading for the last 21 years or 20 years or so now. And so, but the one thing when I first went full-time trading is I actually found it quite lonely. And because trading, you just sit in front of your screens, and it's people want to do it, but I'm someone who craves interaction with other people, and most humans are like that. Not all, but a lot of us are. And so I craved interaction with other people all those years ago. And so I started to do some coaching over the years as well. And it blends really nicely now with my managing my own funds, managing my professional funds, but still it satisfies that need in me to be able to have that coaching. And I think for people to have that support and that feeling of community as well, within, as you said, like a trading room environment where people can come into sessions and do all that sort of stuff, it's really useful for them to be able to learn in a live environment as well from experienced traders.
Great. Stay tuned. I'm going to let everyone here know about that in the next several weeks. Okay, thanks very much indeed, Charlie. Really appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you in the next video.
Yeah, thanks for having me.